How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, just getting ready for the tour coming up. The live rig all set up so I can tinker and fix all the problems that we discovered we had when we did that short little four-show run.
Well, that's good you had the trial run.
We kept accidentally using the phrase warm-up shows like in front of the people that booked the shows. And I was
Yeah.
like, they're not gonna like thought of as the guinea pigs.
I don't know. I think it's always exciting when you get that kind of setup because it's not so cookie cutter, I guess.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's like
true.
more nervous energy. And
Yeah.
sometimes that brings forth a really great performance.
In some ways, I feel like you're always trying to recapture something from your earliest days as a performer. And so, like, switching out the synthesizers right before some really big shows is a great way to just put the fear back in you.
That's one way to do it. And then you play all your songs way faster. I feel like that's the thing that happens with bands. All of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, our set was supposed to be like an hour. It's now 45 minutes. How would that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah, and I'm either
Well,
like not talking at all in between songs or like nervously talking for way, way too long.
it depends how much tuning you need to do, right?
True.
So is it like you're tinkering with synths pretty much all day long at this point?
It does feel that way, yeah. It's before these shows, we switched out what we were using. And so, in addition to learning the new songs, it makes it so all the old songs have like a slightly different flavor about them as well. Because, if people have come and seen us a bunch of times, I don't even know if they'll really notice these things, but the ability to say with confidence, like, it is not the same as it was before is nice. And having new things just like injects an unpredictable nature a little bit into every song because not everything is road tested and perfect. And you get a bit of the fear in you, which is good.
I read that you wanted to make synths sound more human, kind of like this whole Kraftwerk versus Brian Eno thing. And you said you wanted to lean more towards the spectrum of Eno. Do you
Hmm.
think that you achieved that on this record?
I do think so. Kraftwerk for us is such a foundational sonic influence as far as like every time I listen to them, the synth sounds, the percussion sounds, like it makes me want to make music, but they were, very intentionally making things sound very cold and robotic because they were kind of doing so in a response to their times, which was like just after the hippies, and they wanted to be an alternative, I guess. Now we have actual robots making music. And see, I think just like trying to inject as many or as much kind of like unpredictability and allowing mistakes provided they don't distract from the emotional message of the song. You don't want something in there that it's going to take you out of the listening experience, but we very rarely did more than a handful of takes on any instrument. And even just in the songwriting, a lot more of the songs are kind of rooted in the guitar, which every take is not going to be exactly the same, especially if I'm the one that's playing it. Just sort of like making it feel like the album kind of breathes in a way and isn't just everything perfectly gridded and mapped and auto-tuned and all of these things.
I never got the impression that's what your sound was all about, was trying to achieve perfection. It was more trying to achieve like an emotional response of some sort, which I don't know. I feel like there's like a poetry to your sound and what you put out. So it never felt like craft work, is what I'm
Hmm.
saying.
Oh, cool, cool. Well, yeah, it's like good and heartbreaking at the same time.
Do you mind pulling aside the curtain? How do you technically make things sound more human? For example, like you said, if you're playing guitar, it's going to have some inconsistencies. Like, is guitar your first instrument? I know Aiden's first instrument is synth. She's never played anything but synth. Do you think that's kind of how things sound more human? It's just kind of like you're still exploring with your instruments.
Yeah, we would talk in the studio about New Order would be an example of a band where when you listen to early New Order especially, it's like they suck at playing those instruments.
Yeah.
No, like that's too far, but like a lot of the songs are like super sloppy and mixed like very weird and not the way that a pop song is traditionally done. In certain ways, they each rip on their own instruments, but it feels very shambolic when it's together. And I think as far as going into the weeds of like when you're recording, how do you keep it from being too perfect. Guitar was not my first instrument. I took like one lesson from my older brother's friend, and then from then on, just sort of like figured stuff out. And I'm really not good at guitar. I can pretty much only play our songs. And with Aiden, she first started learning synth to join this band. And so that was in like 2015, probably.
Mm.
And while we're recording, while one person is playing the keyboard, I'd be like grabbing the knobs of the synth and messing with them. And our producer, Nick Milheiser, he might go and like flip on the tape delay box and start turning the knobs, and the sound starts getting all like weird and wobbly. And I mean, I think his philosophy in general is he's really not about things like auto tune. He's really not about absolutely perfectly digitally synced delays. He really likes when things sort of float around the beat. And so it's like, while we're not recording to tape, like we are using a computer to take it all in, it is a very analog approach to recording synthesizers and really favors things in the physical world that you can touch and manipulate over the digital.
Yeah, Nick, I read up that he's worked with LCD Sound System, and that's another electronic based band that I feel is really good at achieving like a human sound to their version of electronic music. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it checks out. It seems like Nick's not like hands off, but it seems like he's hands off enough where he just lets you work your own magic and just guides you a little bit.
Yeah, it's often like he has a very fun and interesting way in the sense that it will seem hands off until he like reaches a hand in and creates some chaos to sort of
Okay.
throw you off your game and make you adapt a little bit. And I think there's very much just a spirit of we're in the studio and we have all these knobs we can twist and switches we can flip. Why wouldn't we see what happens if we just mess with stuff while we're getting the job done of taking it in? You know, the studio is a lot less fun when you see it as a checklist. You can still be sort of constructive and experimental at the same time. Really, it should feel like play as much as possible, I think.
Can you think of a
Hey,
song in
Chris.
particular where something like that happened, where he kind of threw you off guard, like maybe
Mhm.
took the handlebars off the bike?
Oh,
You're
for
just like,
sure. There's a song which is not out yet, but it's called In Another Life. It's the second song on the album. And when that song came in, like when I brought that to the studio, I envisioned it as this kind of drumless, it was much more sad and like lilting in nature. There's a song Idiotech by Radiohead, and he brought in that sort of like relentless, almost like 90s electronic percussion aspect to it because it was this brand new element in the course of trying to just get it in. He's like doing crazy stuff and rerouting the drums through synthesizers so the sound gets all like crunched and messed up, and definitely puts you in a position where you're thinking to yourself, I thought I knew what this song is, and now I'm kind of just like, we'll figure it out in the end in the most exciting way.
yeah, like a puzzle
Yeah.
in the mixing room or whatever. So I want to talk a little bit about the theme of the record. Title dance called Memory sounds so wistful. I did a little reading, and from what I understand, things were extra heavy with the writing of the lyrics of these songs. In particular, I think one of the final songs on the record, I believe, was a personal story about someone you knew who went through a lot of health trials.
Hmm.
And I think it seems like the themes of this record are like how quickly life changes in a nutshell. Basically, it's like the trajectory of a life and where you end up.
Yeah, I tend to say that the themes are kind of loss and change and how quickly those things can pile on to each other faster than you're ready for. Like a lot of this record was written during a time when it was, I'm in my mid 30s now, and it was the first time that I had to start taking antidepressants and going to therapy. And it was this very sort of bizarre, overwhelmed feeling where, to a degree, when you're in your mid 30s, you feel like you've sort of seen a fair amount and don't think you're like, well, I haven't needed antidepressants so far. I probably won't. And then all of a sudden you do. And just like the way that life can catch you off guard and try to crush you at times definitely played into a lot of the lyrics. But yeah, certainly I think the song you were referring to before, and Now That You're Gone, is one of the songs that is just straight up about death. It's about my godfather who he died from ALS, and my parents took care of him in their house for the last several months of his life. And I thought that that story, certainly death is massive change, but also the way that their kind of friendship illustrated itself in such like an intense way, that they were able to take on this home care in addition to everything else they were doing, played into a number of the other themes of the record in terms of friendships that had fallen apart in my own life, where you're dealing with this expectation of and versus reality of, oh, like I thought that these people would be with me forever and we could be taking care of each other. And then when that doesn't pan out and you sort of see it illustrated so beautifully with your own parents, it sort of makes it extra difficult, I think, in your own head.
Oh, absolutely. I think in your mid 30s, a lot of times friendships change paths depending on where people are at in their life. And yeah, sometimes the things you think are going to stick around forever kind of just quietly dissolve and you don't even remember when it happened or how it happened.
Yeah.
And then you see the reflections of relationships like your family have, and you think about end of life stuff and like, yeah, all those questions go in your mind. Like, who will be there at the end? Who
Yeah.
will have my back? And
It all
how will
gets very
things go?
existential.
It sure does. Yeah, it's like heavy as all can be.
Through the walls, whispering goodbye. We run, out of time.
Dance called Memory. What were you thinking of when you chose that particular title to encapsulate everything on the record?
Aiden found that title in a poetry book by the writer Anne Carson called The Beauty of the Husband. And for a while, I wanted the album title to come from the lyrics of the record. That tends to be sort of the thing that I default to. I kept scouring through everything, and there was nothing that felt like it wasn't just too specific to the one song that it came from. And The Beauty of the Husband was a book she had read a little while ago, and she's a very active reader in like earmarking pages and underlining things and such. And she handed me this copy of the book with Dance Called Memory underlined. And the line that Ann Carson says is like, what is the nature of the dance called memory? And I see it as your memories are things that you're either trying to pull yourself closer to them or push them away. I kind of envision it as a very physical relationship to your own past and how you want to remember it or how it wants to be remembered. And there's a kind of ducking and weaving and physicality to contending with yourself and how things were. And so when she handed me the book with that underlined, at that point I was still so set on it coming from the lyrics. I was like, sure, sure. And I set it down and I kept working. But then my eye just kept going back to that page with it open and underlined until I was like, I obviously can't ignore this. My brain just keeps saying this phrase over and over again in my head. And I feel like in the artistic process, when you get something really stuck in your mind, that you feel like it is sort of the muse trying to send you a message like, this is the thing, pay attention to this. And indulging in the magic of that is always important, I think.
Yeah. I feel like dancing, the word dance, it just kind of means to lose yourself a little bit too, which feels like a very vulnerable thing, which this record feels like it's about vulnerability a little bit. And also the fact that when I've seen you play, that's all I see people doing in the venue. They're swaying, dancing, kind of just losing themselves in the best way. So it kind of feels perfect in a way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that is sort of bringing it back around to the AI music conversation. I feel like that is one of the things that we as artists can all lean into, is that sort of communal vulnerability. It's one of the things that I just love about playing live and didn't realize how much I missed until COVID when we couldn't play live, was just the feeling of like people feeling like they can let their guard down in front of you and in front of each other, and that you can let your guard down is a really special thing, and something that seems like it becomes more and more rare as we're more and more just in the box of the computer or the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get in that space of a show, yeah, I think it's like really important for your heart and soul to be in that space and to put the phone down at the show, right? And just to dance a little bit. You got some pretty epic tour dates. I was just eyeballing it. I'm like, wow, okay. So everyone knows that writing and recording is only one piece of the album release puzzle. So before you jump into this really hefty tour, how are you all collectively feeling about jumping on the road for this really long list of tour dates? I love the fact that you're kicking off with a big celebratory show in your hometown, NYC, the night before you release your album. How does
Hmm.
it feel like getting ready for that? That's not too far off.
Yeah, no, that's coming up real quick. Yeah, we're doing three Brooklyn shows in a row. And so it's like the night before the release, the night of the release, and then the night after. With those shows in particular, I'm like a little bit more nervous. There's a little more prep going in because there are definitely people coming every night. And so we're trying to make each night as different and special as possible. But I think we're all really excited staring down this list of, I think there's like 47 shows left now that we've done these first four. And the US tour and the European tour, there's only 3 days off in between, I think. So it does feel like the rest of the year will look very different than what it has looked like. And I think we're all excited to embark on that adventure. And the four Northeastern shows that we had really whet our collective appetite for being together on the road. We're very fortunate in that all of us love being on the road, because I've definitely played in various bands with people who, like, if one person would rather be home, it really does change the dynamic. And so having everyone really excited to be out together and supporting each other, it really makes it feel like you're on an adventure and growing together rather than kind of slogging it out.
Oh, yeah. It's hard, especially if you're the one driving the tour van or if you're taking turns
Mhm.
driving. Not
Usually
always.
fighting for the wheel, actually.
Are you? I love that. Yeah, I feel like that's not always the case. I
Yeah.
mean, you get to catch up on reading, you get to see different cities in the country or in the world that you've never been to before. You get to
Mhm.
connect with people all over the world who love your music. I think touring is probably one of those things that you don't appreciate as much while it's going on. Because you can't
Yeah,
tour until you're like 80. Most people can't anyway, unless you're Mick Jagger.
that's true. As with many things, it's how you frame it and where you put your focus. Like if you're just thinking about how inconvenient it is to load everything out of the van into your hotel room and the sort of like nuts and bolts of the things that can be frustrating or tiring about tour, then it might seem like a chore. But for me growing up, I thought being in a band was the coolest thing ever. So all of that stuff is so romanticized for me. Even the difficult things, I find myself wanting to do them because it feels like that's what all of my heroes had to do. And so I'm sort of a part of this continuum of indie rockers trying to make their way in the world. And so it makes it all very exciting and fun to me.
I love that. So, on your return to Milwaukee, you're coming to Turner Hall Ballroom on the 27th of September. Do you have any fond memories of the last time you were at Turner Hall or in Milwaukee? Anything you're looking forward to in particular?
Oh, yeah. We've gotten to play there twice now, and we really love the venue and the space. Everyone who works there is super cool, super helpful. We had some amazing German food just around the corner, not at the
Mhm.
super fancy place that all the famous people have been to. That was too busy, and so we went down the block somewhere else. But yeah, I think we're all just big fans of the city. There are certain places that when you go to a city for the first time that you haven't been to and you don't know what to expect, there are a number of places that have just jumped out to us and been like, oh, this is actually really cool. I had no idea what it was going to be like, but I think it's just a really beautiful place and the people are all really sweet and it doesn't feel quite like anywhere else.
I've gotten that decree from a lot of people, which is great. It's great to hear from the outsiders. They're like, "Oh, y'all are a nice bunch of people, and it's really pretty there." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I feel lucky to live here." A lot.
Sure.
But we're looking forward to having you back again. Your shows at Turner Hall Ballroom with Greet Death coming up. And the album itself comes out on September 19th on Sub Pop called Dance Called Memory. Ian, I've had so much fun talking with you. Thanks so much for your time and good luck with all your synth work that you're doing today
Thank you.
in the
Yes.
background. I'm glad you're getting all prepped for that big show at Turner. We're looking forward to having you back.
Looking forward to being there. Thank you so much.
Rain coming on, and I'm hanging on the line. When we talked, say what you want, but I'm dying on the vine. Say if I were everything else alone, everything's alone.